I'm Kelly, and I'm the lead researcher for the Newfoundland and Labrador Laubach Literacy Council's research project. And the name of our project is called Going the Distance. Our research question is, what are the barriers to online learning that exist for people in rural parts of the province with limited writing and computer skills, and how might these barriers be overcome? And we are ongoing, started back in March and continuing on continuing on till February 2022. Next slide, please. So the gist of it, of course, is the idea is we wanted to be able to reach more people in the province with low literacy skills, so that they could avail of online learning, which is very heavy reading and writing. The innovative idea, I kind of put two of it together, is that Laubach's traditional format of one-to-one training with workbook and, of course, face-to-face could be delivered online, so that students outside of areas or in more rural areas could avail of that same one-to-one format, but in an online delivery mode. And the impact, of course, is that we hope will increase the skills of the participants so that they feel equipped to study other things online, such as post-secondary or ABE, and they'd have access to more literacy training. Next slide, please. So our early learnings during our participant interviews, and we had a goal of interviewing 50 people, and we surpassed that at 57. We found one very important thing, and I'm sure others will find the same thing, is that rapport was essential. We also wanted to identify the skills that they already have. So that, I think, helped us build our rapport. We wanted to learn from our participants, how are they using technology now? And people say, oh, I don't really use technology. But we were finding that they're using social media, they're doing online banking, they're going to YouTube to learn how to do certain things. So we wanted to welcome them with the skills they have, so that eventually they could leave with the skills they need. And that's kind of become our underlying mantra that we came up with during one of our early brainstorming sessions in the project. And the barriers we did discover include, next slide, please. That certainly, and this somebody said earlier, the big one, money, access to computers. Learning from a phone can be challenging, although most people, I think there was one person out of 57 that did not have a mobile device. Level of education attained, and certainly family commitments were barriers. One of the big ones that came up almost, I'm not going to say 100% of the time, and I don't have the stats in front of me, although we do have them, is former learning experiences, especially during high school. That's a real barrier to continuing education. And these would be negative learning experiences. Very impactful. Mental illness, certainly, especially social anxieties. And some of our participants said that they found going into a classroom very intimidating, very challenging, given some of the mental illnesses they were suffering from. And they kind of related to us that, what, if I could do this online, I think that would help me. I wouldn't miss as much time in school. And we did interview a few people that were referred to us for whom English was not their first language. So we were thinking, this type of training could also help people learning English as well. Next slide, please. Couple of quotes that we had received. The first one is, when it comes to learning, it's hard for me to understand stuff, especially English. That was this person's downfall. She had her grade 10 math done, but didn't have her English done. So she was trying to get that done through an adult basic education program. But the next quote, I probably could have just left that one on the slide. I would like not having to leave my house because of my anxiety. If I'm sick, then I don't have to leave my house. I could just do my work online. And that was very powerful. And we have many, many powerful quotes like that, but we only have 8 minutes. So next slide, please. One of the things that came up, and bear in mind, this is at the time that we did our interviews, was that ABE, which is Adult Basic Education, wasn't available online in the province at that time. Since the pandemic, I think everything is available online now. So what one of the participants had said was what they wanted wasn't being offered, and this was a pocket actually of participants. They had done their level 1 ABE, which I think is, equivalent to grade 10, but they couldn't do level 2 and 3. It was no longer being offered in their community, or was never offered in their community, and they were really hopeful that we could bring them that. But that's not what we're doing. We're doing, literacy training, which is different than ABE. So that was interesting. So, and this person couldn't move to get to. They had family commitments, home, and couldn't afford to move to where there was another level of ABE being offered. Next slide, please. Early learnings through our usability testing. So we developed a platform for delivering the content online, and then we tested it on research participants, rapport, number one. But we also found, because of the pandemic, people have uploaded, downloaded, and they're overloaded. Yes, they're knowledgeable about web conferencing, but they're also very tired of web conferencing. It's just another thing happening on the screen. They said access to teacher, instructor, prof, or tutor, very important. And that was, so while they might come into a session such as this one, we're doing an online session right here and now, they wanted to be able to have follow-up. When I asked a question earlier of another researcher, I'm really hoping that researcher will follow up with me later to answer my question. That is a really key thing that came out in our findings. Engagement, and this is my own theory. You heard it here first, okay? The King Kong theory, and this is about keeping people engaged in an online environment, and applies to meetings and even events like this. So next slide, please. Okay, yes, I can hear the gasp and the tremors. Next slide, please. So now, when you go to see the King Kong movie in a big theater, King Kong is pretty scary. Can you find King Kong now on your slide? A few more distractions around it, right? So you can see that you had to be extremely engaging to get yourself noticed on this little tiny mobile device. And by the way, that is not my living room. Disclaimer there. Next slide, please. Weather impacted us, of course. Pandemic impacted us, but we kind of escaped it. Little pockets here and there. We're pandemic dodgers, and finding participants was a bit difficult. We did cold calling. Our steering committee helped us, and of course, good rapport gave us the participation we wanted. And we found that our research participants expressed they had felt really good about participating in they felt they were doing something really worthwhile.